Welcome back here in our patching course. You can see I look a little bit different. That's because I'm recording this in a different session and a little bit later because I realized we've done a lot with distortion and we've done a lot with super harsh sounds, but we didn't do like a lot of multi-band compression tricks. And yeah, that's what I wanted to cover in this section. So welcome to our multi-band add-on section. So this section should be after the layered section. So yeah, basically we've layered all of our sounds in the last section. So they are all here, but we can delete them in this section because yeah, we will just need our bass line, and I've turned all of our bass layers off because one of the sounds that we're going to make will be a bass layer. Alright, so this is how our project sounds at the moment. So yeah, it's just a bassline that we've made in the first video part. First of all, we're going to create a new Serum instance, insert our Serum, and as I said, we are going to make another different layer for our bassline because the layers before they were also cool and moody, but this one I found out and I was just so flashed about it. Alright, so we're just going to copy our bassline pattern into our new Serum instance. Cool, so let's shorten our envelopes. Another cool thing that I found out along the way is you can directly drop your envelopes by hitting Option onto the other one and it will, copy the same shape. So you don't have to adjust them all individually. Cool, so we will need a filter for this trick. So all about this multi-band, as we will hear, trick kind of stuff. It's really about the filter envelope amount and where it will end and where it will start. So this is something we will have a listen to in a few seconds. So let's have a listen to our patch now. Cool, that's too high, so we'll just decrease the octave. And now we'll search for a radius. So that's just more mid information and it's not opening the whole way. And now what's interesting is if you enable the compressor and if you click multiband here, so now you have this multiband compression. What multiband compression basically does, it's just squeezing your whole signal. In this case, it's doing the multiband compression in 3 bands. So you have a low band, you have a mid band. You can see this by the M is lighting up here, and a high band. And what a lot of people don't really know about Serum is you can adjust those bands. So you can just pull the highest one to the left and to the right. And the more you put it to the left, the less highs you will have. And that also applies to the other sections. So this is the kind of trick that we will work with here. So now we can really emphasize our mid-range and we can make this really nice ploinky, clonky kind of a bassline layer. So let's play around with the settings here. If you click, you can just increase the gain. Now this sounds really harsh. So now we can go back to our oscillator, and now that's what I meant. Now we really have to be careful about the filter. Maybe we do a little bit longer envelope. It's too long. Change the filter slope. Yeah, so now it's getting plucky. Maybe we can add a second oscillator and enable the unison. Let's try also some noise and some sub. Later on we will filter out our sub information, but it can still create nice overtones. Not doing too much here, we can leave it out. So we also want to reduce the lows. So with our lows it's like super sub-bassy, but we also already have our sub patch, right? Okay, so now we can start playing around with EQ, delay and distortion and see if we find a nice setting. Let's see if it's better if it's before or after the compressor. It's not making too much difference. I like it more after the compression. Then we can add EQ. Let's try some delay. Change it to 8th notes. It's creating some rhythm. Okay, so let's add an EQ. Because this sub information, we don't need it. We already have our sub baseline. So together with our sub layer, we get this really full. I don't really like the delay. So we get this really full, groovy and, you know, like more subconscious kind of baseline layer feel. And yeah, it's super compressed and super mid-rangey, but this really makes the patch like super full. So let's have a listen with the kick. Oh yeah. Like this, it's great. We have good amount of sub, but this brings in the groove. So now I would just recommend you have your basic settings, you just save this. It will also be available in the download section. And now you just play with different waveforms, different filter slopes, and you can listen together with the kick and the bass, and depending on how deep you want it, you can, filter it more down or open it up a little bit more. Change some of the waveforms. I think I like the very first one actually. You can add a little bit of reverb just to make it spacier. You can even use the EQ to really adjust how much highs you want. And you can see like how much difference the decay time makes here. It's so important that you really have a short decay time. Alright, so that's it for our first layer. Yeah, just a really nice add-on for the bass. So let's continue with the second one. So for this one, we've had our crazy synths, but our more mellow and more dramatic kind of leads, they were missing out. So this is gonna be a patch for those kind of leads. Cool. So let's start. So basically it's the same approach as we did with the bass sound. We will also use some multiband compression. As always, we'll adjust our envelopes here. Zack, zack, zack. We'll enable our filter, put envelope 2 on our filter. Just wondering if there is a way to make this unipolar, but by a shortcut, but there is none. So let's choose unipolar here. So it's just opening up, close it a little bit more. Okay, cool. So that's our sound. We need a little bit longer envelope because this is going to be up like a plucky sound. Okay, so now I'll just directly head over to our FX section, add reverb and delay, so we get kind of this mood that we want to get in, and our multiband compression. We can increase the gain here. So increase the decay time of the reverb so we get a really nice mood. That's a little bit too much. Maybe more feedback, a little bit variation on the timing of the feedback. A little bit less highs. can make it really nice plucky here by increasing the mid. Alright, so we could add some unison here. And what is also a pretty nice thing is if you add like some of these modulations, it's really not that important which kind of modulations you add to emphasize the start of your, like the pluckiness of your sound. So you add this to your sync. This is of course way too much, so we have to use envelope 3 and shorten it up quite a bit. And decrease the amount. But you can hear is making this go, 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 go. That's also too much. I mean, if you like it, you can leave it like that, but for this patch I would recommend doing it just very subtly. Okay, so now we can go about and just play around with our filter settings as we did it in the previous one. Okay. And now we can add some distortion, maybe after the compression this time. So it's really screamy, you know, we're boosting this mid-range information here, and this one is the one that will let the distortion scream. Okay, so now I'll just add some EQ enablement. You know, now because we've like added a lot of mids, you can just decrease them by a couple of dBs here. And of course we will also add some glue compression just to be sure that nothing is clipping. Alright, so now I'll just show you what we will do in the next chapter. And now this can be like, I do just a random rhythm right here, just anything, just for the sake of demonstration, so you know why we're not adding it so much now. So we'll go to Serum and click on chorus. Now we can go to our MIDI clip and go to envelopes. So there's our chorus pitch. And now we will modulate the pitch, and this will create this super like, you know, whiny kind of feel, super dramatic. So with this chorus pitch you have to be really subtle with it because it's a very high amount of pitch that it's controlling in like overall, but you can of course also use the fine pitch. So yeah, that's, you know, this very classy kind of a anima style lead. Okay, so now you can explore further on. You can choose different waveforms for this. You can add noise, for example. Change the filter stop. It will really change the patch completely. Make it tighter. Cool. So this distortion is very important. You can hear it really makes the whole patch scream nicely. And without our compression, it just sounds a little bit thin. So we can try different kind of distortions here. Very brutal. Like those sinefold, linefold, they never work. So you can even try to play around with the filter here. So you know, we really get this nice screaming effect. Okay, so let's play with the filter section here a little bit, and then we're good to go. So this would be too close. This would be like, I mean, super screamy. No? I think we're good. Cool, so... And then we could like dun, 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 you know, then we need the answer. But this is something we will cover in the melody writing course. So that's it for the second one. Combination of very important filter settings, envelopes, waveform. It's really a secondary attribute right here. And then compressor, distortion, delay, and reverb, and like the kind of, you know, filtering processes and which frequencies you emphasize. That's super important right here. So let's move on to our last patch, which will be kind of this like ploinky, deeper bass songs. I mean, we had those kind of sounds, but not really this kind of a ploink. So I'll just call this ploink, and we have our Serum instance loaded. Alright, so welcome to the next patch called Ploink Ploink. So this one is going to be kind of the same procedure here. So you can see by applying the same principles to different kind of patches, you can find out a lot. So the principle here is shorter envelopes, or in generally an envelope that's smoother but short, filter section, multiband compression, distortion, and in this one now there's going to be FM as well. Alrighty. So let's just leave this one and the oscillator just how it is. Decrease, okay, increase release a little bit so it smooths out nicely in the end. Enable our filter, choose our envelope to control the filter. I just want it to be unipolar, so it's, you know, the filter opening is just moving in one direction. Alright, so this can be a little bit shorter, I guess. So now we'll enable our FM kind of modulation by enabling oscillator B and choosing a different waveform. For example, the metal triangle. Switch through the wavetable positions to find just a nice sweep spot. Decrease the level and enable FM modulation from B. Cool. Sounds very weak. Sounds very standard. So I'll just go down a couple of octaves. Let's turn off this random phase, because this is enabled, the phase will just start anywhere here, and it's not really, you know, we don't have any like very detailed control over how this FM will affect our carrier. So you can decrease the random phase here, so we have like just more control over the starting point of the phase. I think it should be shorter. So let's enable our multiband compression again. Like this, it's just really, you know, the highs they're completely overdriven. We also want to decrease the lows here. Okay, cool. So now I'm realizing our filter envelopes are too long. Maybe it's our first envelope. And then also the positioning here could be a problem. Yes, we need more. We need more filter steepness here, so it's getting really nice and plucky. So let's crank up our mid-range band here. Let's see if we can add a distortion, if it will do something nice to our sound. Maybe with envelope 2 controlling the drive, so it gets a certain shape. I'm not quite sure. Okay, so let's add some FX. Somewhere the lows. Increase the feedback of the delay. Like attack and release. Ah, now you can. Shouldn't be too short the release. And we don't need any lows here. Let's try different filter steepnesses. You can hear it, it's so small changes, but it's super important where you are here with your cutoff. Alright, so I don't know if this MB triangle is the best one for this case, so we will just go through our spectral ones and see if we find something that's creating more attackiness. Okay. Getting somewhere. So we can really hear the different kind of FM modulators here because the multiband compression is pushing them up so hard. Also not bad. Can make it really like grrr, grrr, grrr. Maybe we add some noise here. So, if we add our arpeggiator in front of this, put it to 1/16. Maybe we need to play a little bit with our envelope. Nope. That's interesting. So we can add some EQ just to cut out the lows. Let's see how it behaves if we put it in front of the compressor. You know, this kind of like chain order is so important. I don't think we need it here. Let's increase the gate so it's just triggering the envelopes more smoothly. Okay, so yeah, I think that's kind of a good setting. So if we hear it in context, let's wait, let's add some glue compression with our soft clipping enabled. Yeah, so now we have this really nice cloinky kind of a melodic techno feel to our plug. Yeah, maybe you'd have to adjust it like depending on how many elements are playing in your mix. All those patches are available in the download section. So yeah, that's it for our last add-on, I hope. And then we can finally continue writing melodies. But it's just so important that you know all this kind of production techniques. And you know, I don't pretend to be a super crazy melodic techno producer, but I think I found out some really interesting approaches. And that's what I wanted to show you. So yeah, my name is Yannick Mounts. I'm super happy to be here with you together on Production Music Live, supporting you in the best case on your journey as a music producer. And yeah, see you in the next part of the course. Bye bye. Hey people, welcome to the last chapter of my part of this whole academy. So now we're going to dive into melody writing for melodic techno. Of course, I analyzed playlists on YouTube with the big artists and tried to figure out like how they write their melodies. So we'll cover quite a few things in this course. How to make this nice question and answer type of melodies, super afterlife-y style. How to develop like your own arpeggio themes. And we will explore a scale called the badass scale, scale, and this is a naming I've got from Zen World, who's an awesome tutorial maker on YouTube. So I would like to jump directly into the course, into our first chapter of the course called the root jump method. So without further of talking, let's dive right in and let's write some nice melodies. Alright, so here we are in our first part, writing the root jump melody. The root jump melody basically says it all. You just jump between the root and other melody notes. So which kind of melody notes can you play? That's a good question, because there are scales that we're going to use all the time. So as in the whole course, we are here in G minor. G minor consists, as every minor scale, out of 7 different notes and 1 octave note, so 8 notes in total. So if you don't know what a minor scale is or what the rhythm is, maybe this part is a little bit too hard for you, and I would recommend go checking that out before you watch this part, because I cannot cover the like super crazy details of, you know, what a minor third is, what a fifth is, and so on. So this won't be a interval course. You should be somehow intermediate to do this course. So with that being said, let's continue. So let's have a listen to the sound we're going to create. Alright, so that's a pretty solid, super aggressive kind of a sound with a lot of modulation going on. You know, it took us quite a time to come here to this point where we can finally write melodies, but now I think it's pretty easy because our sounds are very, very good and super solid. So that being said, our melodies won't be like super complex actually. What is making this style so hard to produce is you have a lot of different parameters that are influencing the style of the melody. You know, so you have a basic melody, of course, this is what we're going to learn, but then there's also automation, there's the sound design part that we've covered in the previous hours of work. Then there is, you know, you have to know how to use a DAW, you have to know how to mix it, how to get it loud. So there's a lot to it. It's not necessarily that the melody kind of content is super complex, but it's all these different aspects coming together. But we're on a good way, so let's have a look into our Ableton project. As always, this project will be in the download section, so you can download exactly this project here and go along with it. So we have our kick, drums and everything else set it up here very nicely, and we have our different instrument racks here all over the place, all nicely patched. So now we can switch to our arrangement view. So we will extend our loop to 32 bars. Why are we doing this? Because if we get our 32 bars as interesting as possible, and if we can listen to the 32 bars forever, this means it's a good loop, and then we can easily arrange it afterwards. So yeah, I would recommend you doing the same thing. This is also something it's called like reverse production, or in Germany we say das Pferd von hinten aufsatteln, which is hard to explain in English. But yeah, this is what we're going to do here. So let's have a listen to our elements at the moment. Our sweep. This is all nicely shown also. So this is all content of the MTA pack. Made some drums here. Pretty groovy. And here we are using this bass layer from the part with the multiband compression, not the one that we've made in the layering part, just so you know. Cool. Okay, so for this one, we're going to use a brutal stab, and that's how it sounds like at the moment. So yeah, it's just what the name is saying, very, very brutal. And so how is this root jump method working? So basically, we have our G minor scale, right? You have to know what a G minor scale is. And in our lower octave, we're just hitting the G all the time. And then we're jumping 1 octave higher. And then we're doing this motion of going back and forth between those two notes first of all. So this is kind of, you know, I won't show this course too much inside Ableton because I think it's also something that has to come out of feeling, you know. And I've also seen videos of, like, for example, Animan. He's always there on his synthesizers playing them live. So I think it's not really that interesting and that possible to really like program this stuff in and to be super theoretical about it. Okay, so I want to give you the like more pragmatic approach. So jumping back and forth between your root notes. Then you start altering your right hand, okay? If G minor is too complex for you, you can also use A minor, but it's important that you use a minor scale because all of this music is written in minor. And you know, you can just do this kind of stuff with it. So you're just going up the minor scale in your right hand. And then, you know, what is interesting is if you don't necessarily do it too straight. What do I mean by doing it straight? I mean, if we have to listen to our metronome here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you just hit on this note all the time, you know, it sounds super static. It sounds like a little bit dumb, actually. Then. So we want to have something that's a little bit more groovy. So the nice thing is we have our arpeggio turned on here right before our root jump rack. So this arpeggio will automatically sync the note. So we don't even have to, you know, be super tight when we're playing this. The arpeggio will help us out. So instead of being super robotic, you know, we do something that's a little bit more groovy. And what do I mean by grooviness? How do you achieve grooviness? You just hit the higher note or the lower note a little bit earlier or a little bit later. Another thing that's very important is that you play the synth legato. So don't, you know, take your fingers off before you play the next notes, but you let them overlap a little bit. Okay, so let's have a listen to this in context. Without our metronome. And in general, if you're doing this kind of sequences, so this is a melody sequence that should stand for itself, you know, it's very aggressive and it cannot be listened to all the time because it would be very annoying and very, super energetic all the time. So it makes sense to keep your playing inside a certain area. And by area, I mean bars. So it makes sense to either play 1 bar or 2 bars or 4 bars or 8 bars and then stop. Okay, so this one, for example, so I will start at bar 5. It will be 2 bars long, right? It makes more sense if you do it like this. So if you play over like 2 bars, you do 2.5 bars, it feels super incompleted. I think this is my guess, I don't know it exactly, but I think that's because the human mind subconsciously thinks or perceives in like measures of a bar, 2 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars. That's the thing you also experience, you know, when you're like DJing and there's 16 bars are over and there's something new coming and then you know it's been 16 bars. That's just a normal like human feel to music. So that's just being said if you're asking yourself the question like, how long do I play my sequences? So let's get this melody a little bit more interesting, and now our badass scale is coming into action. So now we've had our natural minor scale, which consists of a G. Afterwards there's our A, and then there's our B flat. So we have whole step, half step. But now what we do is we flatten our A to the A flat, which is basically just a half tone above our G. So we have half tone, whole step, or half tone, whole tone, or half step, whole step. So first it sounded like this. Now it sounds like this. You know, it's giving this scale a little bit more of a badassy feel. So if you want to put this into really musical terms, this is the Phrygian. So we're using the Phrygian scale to make this kind of badass melodic techno leads. Let's put this into action. I will use this Phrygian scale and play it back for you so you really get the feel of this note. You can almost feel it wants to resolve very hardly into the tonal center, and the tonal center is our G. Why is it G? Because G is playing there all the time. So this is setting the basic tonal foundation. The note that's being played and heard the most of the time in our track is our tonal center. So if you have struggles with hearing this note or hearing the difference of this note, that's unfortunately nothing that I can teach you here. This is something you have to do by yourself. I can only recommend go on YouTube, search for ear training methods. I'm doing this by myself every day since 2 years or something, and it really helped me understanding and especially feeling scales. So let's start fooling around with this Phrygian scale and see with what melodies we can come up with. Always jumping between our root note and the 3 or 4 first step of our Phrygian minor chord in the right hand. But really, people, this is not, you don't have to think Phrygian minor, just think the first couple of steps of your minor scale. In this case, our Phrygian minor scale, right? Okay, so I'll just record this. And maybe you have heard it, there was another note inside here, which is the F. So the F and the A sharp are the notes that are right beneath our tonal center. And maybe you realized that I was playing, like in the very end I was playing this F, which was then resolving to the G. Why do I say it's resolving? Because if we have a strong tonal center, the notes like right below or above our G, they will want to go back to the C, because there's this natural want or this natural need of the human ear that it wants to resolve. So the closer you are to your root note, and that's what I did here in the end by playing the F, this wants to resolve in the G, right? Okay, so that's one more note that you can use. So we will start with our root note, go up to our root note. Now I will go to a Phrygian ninth, then to the minor third, then I will walk down to the Phrygian ninth again, and then I will go to the F. And where do we want to go? So, if you have struggles hearing where this note wants to resolve, do ear training. Please, 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 it will help you a lot. Okay, I'll just save this and then I'll just do a couple more jams, and I think you can, just get inspired by this and have a look at how I would go about writing these melodies and how I try out different stuff. Maybe we can go higher up. So let's do an answer or like a reinterpretation of this. So instead of going up, we will start higher on, for example, our 5th or our 4th, and we will go down. So I'll play the first one like normal, like the one we did before. Now I'll start higher. So this is kind of, how you can develop different themes. So I will concentrate one more time because I think it was acceptable, but not that of a good result actually. So let's start again. That was good. So we're resolving on the G in the end. So let's start higher up. And we only do it 2 bars long, right? That's what I said in the beginning. Very important. One more time. One was too short. Yeah, okay. That was good. Okay, I think we can work with one of the last variations here. Yeah, there you can hear it, that's what I meant earlier on. So we will just get rid of those here and just select the area with the MIDI clip, hit Command and J, and it will create like a, perfectly long MIDI clip. Cool, so let's go inside our MIDI. Let's fold this MIDI so we don't have this very confusing view. Okay, so this one is not starting accordingly. So you see, this one is not long enough, so we just drag it here. Let's see the other one. Okay. Oh, I like this one. Yeah, I think we can take this last part here. So for all those people that don't have this kind of piano skills, I mean, I'm not a super skilled piano player, but I can play the piano to a certain degree. I just want to have a quick look and, you know, how those notes behave and maybe like how we could also go about programming these notes. Okay, so I'll set our grid to 16th notes. And now what you can see, what is really interesting is that those notes here, and when we count the 16th note and the length of the notes, right? I mean, those notes, they are being arpeggiated in a rhythm of 16th notes, of course, afterwards, right? But so there will be 1, 2, 3 16th notes. Then is this next note, which is like basically Okay, so let's analyze this MIDI for a little bit. So you can see that this like note values here all around like the length of 3 16th notes. Of course, some are beginning earlier on than others, but that doesn't really matter. So that is a really interesting kind of a rhythmic feel that you get from this. We will have a look at this later in like our arpeggio section, for example, but I will also make an example here. So let's open up a new MIDI clip. So let's just program in a 3 16th value long G note. Now we will use the root jump method. It's just go up an octave, so we can go to scale here as well, hit G, Phrygian, don't fold. So all the highlighted notes, that are the notes that we can use. Okay, so as I said, you want the notes to overlap a little bit. So top in the bottom corner, like in the bottom line, we always have our G. That's 1 octave too high. So, you know, we just take this value of 3 16th note and duplicate them one after each other. So then we take this Phrygian 9th, then we just go up. And we're just walking up the stairs. And then we have to resolve. Right, so that's a pretty interesting rhythm because, you know, it's super groovy because we're starting this note here, or this note of section on our first, on the on beat, and then the next one that starts is on a syncopated note. And a syncopated note is a note value that's not on the off hat position or not on the kick position. So this one is starting on a very groovy position. Then we have our like more straighter position again. Then we have our groovy position again. Then we have our straight position again. Then we have a groovy position again. Then we have a straight position again. So you can see this is a really nice mixture between groovy and ungroovy placements of notes. So maybe you could bring in some more variations, and my example right here is a little bit different, of course. Just bear this in mind, that a good, you know, back and forth between those super groovy and not that groovy kind of note values is very important, and it makes super much sense. Okay, so let's delete this MIDI clip and continue with our MIDI that we've just recorded. So let's have a listen. For example, there's like a note that comes too late in for my taste, like I think the second last one. I think this one comes a little bit too late, so let's just move this here. We haven't talked about this ratatatat, which is super important in this kind of melodic techno music nowadays. So how can we implement this? Like on synthesizers, it's called ratchet. So yeah, if you see something on a synthesizer that's called ratchet, it means it will just repeat a note within a certain value. And this is what we're going to do here as well. So we can jump to our rate of our arpeggio here, right click, show automation, and here we go. There is our synced rate here. So now it's set to 16th notes all the time. So now we want to alternate this value. And to do this, I would recommend you using the pen tool. I don't necessarily use the pen tool for any automation, but it creates this nice rectangles here, right? It's just on off. So it's just that the rate that we're going to automate jumps in a very, strict order, and it's not too random, and there's not this values between. Let's start by dialing in some. Just for me, I'm doing this kind of random. I think 132 notes work very well, and I think this kind of moves make sense on the lower notes. So just watch here graphically where are your lower notes and maybe try to alternate more of them and not the higher ones. This is just a rule of thumb. So let's just have a listen. So now it's too much. This one, it's just too obvious somehow. Yeah, this sounds nice. Maybe we just close the cutoff, because if we close the cutoff, we will be able to hear the envelope a lot better, because it can work. If the cutoff is open, the envelope on the cutoff cannot work, right? So let's close the cutoff. Cool, so now you can already hear it's working much better. We heard the ratata, we hear the ratatats way better. Alright, so I think that already sounds pretty nice. So watch out with the gate here when you're doing this stuff. Sometimes if you insert the arpeggio new, it's just set to 50%. So let's have a listen and just have a listen to how the whole sound and the length of the notes behave if I play around with this. It's like, it's super like, cut it off and staccato and mechanical. So if we put it somewhere to 90%, it will work nicer. It just sounds weak. Perfect. So now let's start automating the cutoff. So automating the cutoff is just a thing that those producers always do. It's a super nice way to bring in variation inside your line. So I would recommend you can click this little plus down here. So you have two automation views. So this can help because we want to see where our ratatatats are. So we can see them here. Right, so now we can go here into the root jump rack. Now we have our cutoff knob here. So what I want to do is I want to close the cutoff faster our arpeggio is playing, because then we can hear the ratatatats more nicely. So we can start kind of open. And then we will close it down, open it up, close it down, open it up, down, open it up, and let's close it down and open it up in the very end. It's a little bit too much here in the end. Okay, that sounds pretty good. So we just bring in more variation to the theme. Okay, so let's do this for the second part. So let's first do our arpeggio rate automation. So I'll just switch the grid to 16th notes here again. You can do this by right clicking and hitting 1/16th, or what I found out, which is much faster, you can hit Command 1 and 2 2 is making it more wide and 1 is making it narrower. Okay, so now we're at 132 value. You can see this down here. I'm looking here on the screen. As I said, maybe it makes sense to take the lower notes here. So this is a little bit confusing here at the moment. So I'll just go here and open up the arpeggio view here. So yeah, it's a little bit more obvious which notes are which. Okay, so we should close down the filter a little bit because we're not able to hear the ratchets now. Okay, so let's go back to the arpeggio. I'm hearing something here, and this is kind of, you're just listening to your inner voice somehow, and it will tell you a point. Maybe you cannot exactly say when, but you kind of guess, and that's where you just try around and fool around, and then you start from there. I hear something here. Fast. You can see we don't really use, we don't use 8th notes, and we don't use anything much faster than 132 notes. I can do it here. Yep, sounds good. Okay, so let's adjust the cutoff accordingly. As I said, we can open this up, so now we can see the points where the cutoff should be a little bit lower. Of course, we want to have some movement that makes sense in the end. So the notes are going higher up, so we have more energy. So I think in generally, something like this as a basic shape would make sense. But inside this, we can go with the movements of our notes and consider this has to be kind of low. So maybe we will invert this. Then go higher up here, just stay there, go up, go up, go up, and then we will go down here. I mean, it's the highest point, but maybe it's cool to hear at the highest point that, we have a lot of variation in here, and then we can go up again in the end. So you kind of, go with your melody flow and with the energy of your melody, but at the same time trying to, emphasize the points, that are being ratcheted. Okay, so it's closing down too much here. And it's opening up too much there. And here's too less movement. Let's hear it with the other one. So generally we're starting higher here because we want more energy. That already sounds pretty nice to me. Alright, so what else can we do? Of course, we can use our hitch bend. So let's go inside our MIDI clip and let's go to envelopes, MIDI control, pitch bend. Alright, so I think it makes sense to use the pitch bend more on the lower notes, the G notes, because they are playing the root position note, and it may be not making too much sense to really detune it here in the very beginning, because I think we could start more on our note tonal center and not right beneath it. But this is just something that makes sense for me. If you like it, if it's in the beginning, do so. So this is just a general rule of thumb that works for me. Everything I teach in this course, it's working for me, but please break the rules. I just try to give you as much inspiration as possible. Okay, so blah 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 blah, let's continue. So we will leave it in the beginning and then maybe go a little bit flatter on this note. You want to be subtle here. I will just overdo it. That's too much. And the last note should also be on pitch. This one. you can also do very subtle variation here. This is sometimes hard to hear, but it will make the whole melody sound more interesting, even though you cannot really hear it. The feeling. This will sound more badass. Cool. Let's continue. Let's start here. It's not playing back the first note. This is too low. Okay, I think this is enough movement. Alright, so I think we've done a lot to this melody. Now we can do one last thing. We can add a echo and a reverb. So we'll just take the echo and enable the reverb inside it, like this. And now we can automate this. So let's just increase the feedback a little bit more, right click, show automation. And now we'll use this to kind of fade out the last notes here. So this will be way too much, but just for the sake of demonstration, let's have a listen, like this. Now it's smoothing out in the end. We don't want that much. And I think there are a lot of lows inside, so let's just enable the filter high pass here, like at 200 or 300 Hertz is perfect. Yep. That's a little bit much here. Still a little bit much. And we can start earlier here. Yep, it's getting better. Increase the feedback time. So now it's really, smoothly fading out. Nice. Alright people, so that's it for our first melody, the root jump method. So primary aspects of this patch are you have to have a sequenced or arpeggiated sound that's playing all of the time. Then you're hitting in your left hand or in the lower octave, you're playing the root note all the time, and then you're alternating between the higher notes of your minor or like Phrygian scale. Bear in mind this rhythm trick with the 3/16 long kind of a rhythm, and yeah, so just try not to hit on every quarter like a like a child or something. Just be a little bit more, syncopated in your playing here. Hey there, welcome back in this new chapter. So this one is called the answer method, and here you can have a listen. Alright, so that's how the sound sounds like. And before we do that, I'll just copy over our brutal step to the left. And something that is important, it should not, like this small lock here in the right corner should not be activated, because if it's activated, you are not able to, move your automations with your notes. Alright, so what do I mean by the answer? We have this as a sequence. And now we need some dun 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 question. Dun 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 answer. So this is the basic concept. It doesn't even has to be such a clear question, but we will use it as a question. So brutal step that we've made earlier is the question, and now we'll do the answer to this question. Alright, so brutal step is fine. Let's leave it alone. Let's go to our second patch called a fat step. This is how it sounds. So if we open up the filter here, you can hear it's really getting to its full power. Yeah, and we have this cool second layer that we've made earlier on. So something fun you can do here, you hit Command and M. So this will open up your MIDI mappings. Now what you can do is you can click the rate, just jiggle a little bit on your mod wheel, and now your mod wheel will be controlling the rate. So if we have a listen now, I'll just mute this brutal step for a moment because it's super loud. Play something back and just stay with the mod wheel here. It will create this nice rhythmical variations. So this is something that you can also use just to be, jamming around and having fun with. Alright, so when we have our brutal step enabled, like this kind of melody, it's not so much like a melody thing. It is important that we play like something melodic here, and that is just a root note, because the answer, like answers in general in question and answer or call and response stuff, they should be somewhat on the root note, because an answer should be something fulfilling, and what is fulfilling? Fulfilling means we are getting back to our tonal center, because the human ear always wants like harmony and dissonance to resolve. So we are giving this pleasure to the listener when we're just using like the root note over and over again. And sometimes music is really not that super complicated, especially in these cases where, as I said in the beginning, complexity is more based on different levels and not like so much on the melody writing. But let's loop this first 9 bars. And now I would like you to imagine kind of an answer. So imagine this is the question, the brutal step, and then just, feel this 2 bars of silence and try to figure out where an answer could be and how it would sound like with this sound. Down, boom, boom, boom. So you can make this with me. I'll just do it. I will make myself a little fool here. So let's do it. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. Something like this. Dun, 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 dun. Or something like that. Bum, 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 bum. Maybe that last one, I don't know. Dun, 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 dun. So you get the principle, right? But that's the inner voice that you are searching for, your inner rhythmical voice to be, more accurate. So we could go inside and just program this in. This would be the easiest one. So we can just try this. So yeah, let's just have a listen, and then we can see, we can just see where we have to draw in the note. Dun, 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 dun. So I'm starting on the offbeat. Dun. Done. Oops, 1 octave too high. Let's turn off the arpeggio here. Dun dun dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun dun. So it's just basically on our beat here. Boom, boom. Something like this, for example. And we can take this answer and vary it. Dun 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 dun. do like dun dun dun. And now we can enable our ARP again, set the rate to 16th notes. And now we can open, like right click, show automation. And I've previously made this note longer. So now we can do a ratatatat here. Hit B, put this to, what is it here? No, 1/24th is not the right value. Yes, like this. Okay, so we can right click our cutoff here, just open it up here. Just be subtle here. And here we're going full power. And we can do the same trick with the echo and reverb automation in the very end. So let's add an echo. Of course, I'm only using Ableton effects here. I mean, they're working pretty nicely, but of course, I would recommend you use a nice plugin, use your Soundtoys, use Valhalla, use whatever you love. Okay, so just go up there. Like I think values around 20 to 35% or something like that makes sense. We have to keep up the mix here. Yes, maybe we will give it even more reverb and increase the decay time of the reverb quite a bit. And let's low cut this sound. Too long decay time. Okay, this sounds pretty nice. I don't like it how it's closing down here. So we can even, enable the mix in the beginning of our track. So this reverb will then still be playing here, and this, reverb and echo tails, they will blend nicely into each other afterwards. Now it's coming. This sounds pretty smooth now. Okay, so let's expand this loop. Do you feel how the energy keeps up? You're expecting something to happen. So this is where we're going to be doing a new answer or a new introduction of a sound in the next patch, but I just wanted to go to this pattern again and show you one more time what I meant with this 3/16th note rhythm that I've talked about earlier. Because I think this is really a super nice syncopated rhythm and it's all over this music. So let's get into the MIDI clip and see what we can do. So now you can see on our grid it's 1/16th notes. So we have 1, 2, 3 16th notes. Not all of them have to play at the moment, right? So it can also be possible to just play the first one and then you have like 2 empty ones, then there is one again, then you have 2 empty ones, and then there is another one, and then you have 2 empty ones. So you can continue this forever, right? And then at a certain point it will just loop again, but not very soon. So let's just have a listen to this. Dun 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 dun. It's like this dun 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 dun. It's like also like And Me is using this kind of rhythms a lot in his tracks. So we can, just try to select all of those notes and just move them 1/16th to the right. So as I said earlier, we don't necessarily want to go into our 8th bar. Right? This is just 1 bar and we are using this 1 bar for our answer. So don't go in here. This sounds also really nice. Of Of course, we can go inside here, make some of those node values longer, go back to our arpeggio rate mode. And this was just happening completely randomly, what I did there. You know, I'm more a fan of doing things randomly, and then you can always recall everything in the end. I'm a huge fan of just doing something, even if you don't know if it's going to work, and then you can also recall everything here in your DAW, right? Okay, so let's do some ratatatats. This one is too much here. Dun, dun. That's pretty nice. Alright, so let's have a listen. Okay, so now we've, pimped our first 8 bars pretty heavily. They sound super nice. And now we need something, different to be coming into our second part of our 16 bar loop in our second 8 bars. And this is what we're going to do now in the next part, where we're going to be using our LFO pad. So welcome to the next melody that we'll be writing. This time we are going to use our LFO pad, and this one is called the LFO interplay because it's just a nice interplay between the reverb tails and our LFO pad and the other sounds that we're going to create in the future of this course. Alright, so we have our LFO pad. It sounds like this at the moment. Let's get rid of huge amount of reverb. This is just such a satisfying sound. Okay. So I'll just, show you what we will do and then we'll talk about it. Something like this. Okay, so we don't necessarily have to play this on our piano. We can also just create a MIDI clip. So how I create MIDI clips inside Ableton, I just select the area, hit Shift, Command and M. This is the fastest way to create a MIDI clip and it will directly open it up. So let's just use a basic minor triad here. Take our G, hit Option and just drag the key so we can duplicate it. And then we have our 5th note, which is our D, and our minor 3rd, which is our A sharp in this case, or it's B flat, whatever you call it. So a technique that I like to show people also like in harmonic courses is, this 3rd here has not to be down there necessarily. We can take it and transpose it up an octave. So let's just hear the difference. So this is how it sounds in normal root voicing position. So root position. This is the higher position, or the open voicing position it's called correctly. Yeah, and it just sounds much brighter, but we haven't changed the quality of the chord, right? So yeah, we're not into chord writing here, but this is just a small trick. Like in general, if you take the 3rd of your chord, transpose it up an octave, it will sound nice. It will sound very open. Okay, so here, that's all we need to do right here for our LFO pad, and the rest we're going to do with automation. So this is kind of a filler sound, and it's, making you feel good and coming from like a higher state of mind kind of a feel. Yeah, something like this will work out. So let's listen in context. Maybe it's too much at this point and we'll let it start a bar later. Let's see how it sounds like that. Yeah, I think like that it sounds really nice. So, you know, we have kind of have a question, we have an answer, we have a question, we have an answer, and now we have like a second answer, I would call it. Okay, so let's right click on the rate, show automation, and we'll start on a higher rate so it, you know, it slows down. So we have a high energy here, high energy peak at our start of our second 8 bars of our 16 bar loop. And with option, you can make this curve concave and convex. So that's pretty nice to, you know, so it's slowing down in the beginning much more than towards the end. That's too fast. I think that's smooth. So now we can right click on the space. Also automate this one. We can already have some space here in the beginning because otherwise it will sound very dry. Maybe we can make it a little bit louder. And it's nice because it's like our reverb in the background, it's so long, and that's really important. Like, I mean, this is a sound design part, but we did a nice sound design, so now there is this part that's still going on in the background, and it's really fulfilling for the listener, because the person will always hear something that's going on. And that's the same principle as with the reverbs and the other elements. And then we have all these different reverb tails going into one and each other. New lead. Reverb tail. New sound. Reverb tail. Dun 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 dun. So now we can add our next sound. So this wasn't too much melody writing here because there is no melody that has to be written. The sound itself creates so much variation that we don't necessarily need something like, and especially the LFO cannot play a melody. So yeah, that's it. That's how we use our LFO pad. And now we'll continue with the next sound and with the next answer to our question and all this madness. So see you there. Alright people, so here we are continuing our question and answer kind of a conversation. And as the name already says, we will use our ploink sound, and this is how it's going to sound like. Alright, so I hope you loved what you heard. Alright, so here we are with our ploink preset raw. It sounds like this. Pretty cool, pretty afterlife-ish. Yeah, you remember a lot of multi-band compression and fiddling with the filters. Alright, so for this sound, this chapter is the ploink ratatat, so we will need a ratatat. How do we do a ratatat? We hit Command and M, delete this modulation here, and click on our rate of our arpeggiator in front of our ploink preset. Just wiggle the mod wheel a little bit, so now it's mapped. By the way, if you cannot receive any MIDI information from your keyboard, maybe that's because you haven't enabled Ableton to allow it. So you go to Link, Tempo MIDI, and you have the Swiss Sonic Easy Keys. That's just this keyboard. Yours will have another name. And then you click remote, and remote has to be enabled to receive information from your external device. So this one is also very rhythm based, and also here is not such a huge amount of melody, because the melody basically it exists out of one note again. So as I said, we will write real melodies here when we come to the ARP section, I swear, but a lot of the things are not that complicated. Okay, so as earlier explained, I'll just go about and play with the mod wheel a little bit, and yeah, maybe it's interesting for you to be part of this process. So I will stop talking now and just start, you know, fiddling with the mod wheel and our one note and see what I can come up with. In the first part we won't need anything. I can set the loop here to the second one. That was pretty cool. So much nicer if you like stay in the length of one bar here with your answers. Then they really start making sense. Okay, I like those two, but I will do a couple more. Let's record. We have to adjust the gate time. Let's just adjust the gate time here, because I think the sound is not that smooth at the moment. Yeah, it was just ending too abruptly. Okay, so let's have a listen to our first ploinks. I really like the first one, so I think we go with them. Maybe we do it here. Let's see. Yeah. I mean, now the question is, do we want the same exact sound one after the other? For me, it sounds different, and the rhythms are different, so it shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so now we can do the same thing as previously. We will insert an echo. Let's enable the reverb here, a little bit longer decay time. Open up the filter, low cut, high cut, increase the feedback, and right click so we can automate the dry and wet. Zack, zack, 70% is too much. Maybe 22 then. Go right down before the ploink starts happening. Go up again, and let's have a listen. Yeah, so the second one is way too much. Even this is too much. Okay, so let's have a listen in context. Maybe we go with one. What is happening? happening. Cool, so we will just stay up here with the dry and wet mix. Maybe we can even go up a little bit more. More feedback, so we really hear the feedback of the delay. Too much dry and wet. Alright peeps, ploying just sounds nice by itself. Just play around with your mod wheel and the rate. Watch out for the gate and put some echo behind it, and then you're kind of good to go. So yeah, that's it for the ploink. Let me know what you think of the ploink, and we'll see each other in the next melody writing part.